The pinnacle of human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane, of course, and then we're talking shift. Let me figure out how to get to the other screen here. There we go. I'm getting rusty, Michelle. What's up, Michelle?
I know, we're out of practice, bro. We'll see how we do today. There might be some stumbling and some squirrel moments, but we'll get through. Yeah.
We'll make it through. Yeah, we were talking and we're like, should we record it or should we? We're like, no, we'll never get through it. We're like, oh, let's just start it over again. We do that a lot. Ends up being a big ordeal. So you guys get us live, and however we, come across is how it is.
Well, we'll just, even though we haven't been doing the show, Shane and I have been talking shift every couple weeks for, nonstop, right? So we keep having our chats, and so this will pretty much be like us having one of our chats.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was just looking when I was setting up the stream that our last one was right by the spring equinox. So it's been 6 months, and I had a Mandela effect today because I thought today was the equinox, the 21st. I could have swore, like, when I looked forward to the upcoming equinox, and I wasn't going to say anything about it because it wasn't 100% for me. And then I've heard two different people in their videos say it's the equinox. I'm like, no, it's tomorrow. It's the 22nd. But I thought it was the 21st. It's actually almost the 23rd. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Central Time on the 22nd, which means 9 p.m. for Eastern Time where you're at. And then if you're in Europe, it's going to be, early hours of the morning on the 23rd. So strange. It's a Mandela effect for me. But, that kind of gets into what we've been talking about, because it seems like a lot of people wake up to things around these Passover, where the sun passes over the equator. There's like a shift in the energies or something. It's when many of us woke up to the Mandela effect, and now we see awakening in huge droves right now. It's just been blowing my mind. People I would have never thought, Are you coming through?
Ooh.
Am I chopped up?
There you are.
Oh,
yeah, okay. Got chopped up for a second there. So I caught you saying that at these times, people, it's just accelerating people waking up. And I think we just had, another wave of, over the course of the summer and especially these last couple months. But I see again that I think, whatever is going to happen within the next few weeks, whatever it is, couple things I think that are going to happen. I think financial and physical in some way. So
and energetic, a lot of energetic stuff going on.
Yeah, energetic. So we're going to see some real, actual stuff go down. So however that plays out, it's going to, like everything else, it's going to awaken more people, like even more. So,
you know what? It's kind of funny you're talking about this, because I see the archetype or the comparison with what we were going to talk about anyway, which was the spiritual body, the emotional body, the physical body, right? And we've got things happening in the physical, things happening, collectively, emotionally, and, a lot of purging with emotions right now, as well as the spiritual awakening. And it all does, it affects each other. So
it is really micro macro that, sort of this experience, I think that's going on internally and sort of what's coming out and the understandings that we're having and the discernment that we're gaining within ourselves is literally playing out. And a lot of this, is kind of the dance between the narcissist and the empath, and the awakening of the empath to their, kind of entrapment by the narcissist, and all the tactics and all the things and all the mechanics that they do in order to con you and get your energy and trick you and make you think that you're crazy and all these different things. And I think a lot of many of us on here, being empaths, have probably at one point in our life been in a personal relationship, whether family or relationship with a narcissist, and sort of waking up to like how they get you in, especially the gaslighting. And so I think it's really kind of this going on this greater scale now, and understanding the dynamic of those relationships and breaking away from it. So, and we're all freeing ourselves from that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like what you were saying, because I was noticing a lot of the tactics used that seem to be directly focused at the starseed empath type people, right? Like, well, if you love others, you'll do this and you'll do that.
That's
right?
a big
this
one.
level of manipulation where the heart-centered people feel a direct attack, and they're like, am I just being selfish here?
Right.
And you don't want to be selfish. You want to, you know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm like, man, this is some sinister stuff going on. You know what I mean?
Really is, because a narcissist will never ask themselves if they're being selfish.
Right.
So you're sitting there spending all this time. Is it me?
Right. But they don't ever consider it.
Yeah. I don't want to make anybody feel like that, or I don't want to. Oh no! What a con! What a trick! Right? And the virtue signaling and. So, but that's it, to really go, but we are willing to go deeper and ask those deeper questions and ask, is it me?
Right.
And you have to be willing to ask that, to do this work. That's a big part of it. That's a big part of the shadow work. But, in a way that we're not being manipulated by somebody else anymore, to really understand boundaries, like when it is you and when it isn't you. And,
well, so many people
2 plus 2 still
heart.
equals 4, not 5.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Like they're trying to convince you that black is white and white is black. And
so many stories you hear of people, they feel it in their heart. They're like, I just had this feeling I shouldn't do this, or that I should, or whatever the thing is. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to trust your heart, I feel like.
That's right.
Not to be manipulated. If you go within, the heart will never lead you wrong. But that's what the distractions are all about. Look at this. Not that. And it's probably chopping up for Michelle, because
there you go. So I got the heart will never lead you wrong, and then you cut out there. So what was the last thing you said?
Yeah, I was just saying that we have to trust that inner guidance in all of our decision making, because it won't lead you wrong, especially when they're trying to deceive us actively.
So this is wonderful, even that you're bringing this up. We talk about the heart, the heart won't lead you on the mind, and this is kind of, what I was saying about these different bodies that we have, the physical body and the emotional body, which is the heart, right? Which it can lead you wrong sometimes. Like if it's the avatar emotional body, I think that's the thing, it's a bit of a trick, when we talk about heart and heart-based and sort of, being in the heart, kind of including it with sort of the higher self, right?
Right.
And that's sort of the divine love, but the emotional body can be misled and can be very jumpy and can be very reactionary and can be very sensitive and can leap to prod the mind to fight or flight. And it's the first body often, except maybe the spiritual body, but the first body that sort of feels the impact of whatever's coming at it. The first one to react, right? And it just feels. It doesn't think. It just feels. And then that prompts the mental body to then kick in and say, okay, I got it. I'll take care of us, right? And I got a plan. And that doesn't always work either. Right. So yeah, this has been sort of kind of the things that I'm sort of understanding at deeper levels with these energies. And, when we always did this show before, we talk a lot about the chakras and just affecting those. And I think that's the real difference that I'm seeing lately in my understanding, is that how the higher self is coming into this vessel. and that this vessel is not just this skin and this flesh and bones, that it is these layers, right? It is the physical layer, and it holds its memory and its patterns in a certain way. And then it's an emotional body, that layer, and it holds its patterns in a particular way. Then we have our mental, right? And the ego and the mind, our mental body, right? And it holds its own patterns as well. And then we have our spiritual body. And we have this higher self coming in and pushing into all those layers and pushing out all those programs that no longer work, right? Yeah. That cause a fracturing of our power. It scatters our strength. It diffuses our light, our energy, because it's all misdirected and working programs based on fight or flight mode, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's really how this process is coming into us and pushing through those different layers. And so ascension symptoms, you know, I'm really starting to understand on a deeper level, the things that we feel are a result of that higher self coming in and pushing out the symptoms of purging through the physical body and through the mental body and through the emotional body, right? And so why sometimes we're tired, and why sometimes that our mind's going crazy, and why sometimes we're just feeling something and we don't know what we're feeling or why. It really is a result of that. Yeah.
I think
it accelerates.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're saying is really good, and it's actually really brought me back to really making a distinction between what we consider to be our heart and our emotions that are attached to that, and that true desire, which is actually, you know, not my will but thy will be done, right? So we do have this really deep drive within us that are, you know, it's source or the divine beckoning us. And that's at the deepest part of the heart. It's beyond the emotion. So I think that's a really important distinction. When I say of the heart, it's not like, oh my gosh, you know, like you've got puppy love or something, right?
Right.
Because that's still on that emotional level. But we're talking at that deepest level, that part that's satisfied when you help a complete stranger. And like, what's that feeling in there? You know, what's that? I got nothing out of that. It's a core feeling. But, right, exactly. So there's a huge distinction. And that actually leads to what we were talking about last week when we were talking about what are our desires and how what we put value into, right? Because if you're putting value in like material things, then your heart is going to be after those things, and that's not the deep part we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. That's like just the surface level. That's like our lust, basically, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the surface level stuff that doesn't even really matter because it's the physical realm. You know, but there's a deeper drive. We all have to get beyond that, and it only appears when we put value in it.
Yes.
You know, and if you don't even realize it's there, you can't even put value in it. If you're walking around like feeling like, you know, the world's just horrible, there's no good to be found in it, you'll never find it. You know what I mean?
No.
Because you can't find it in yourself if it's not anywhere else, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's the big question lately. So value. So, you know, that's kind of a way that I think I want to encourage or leave this message today to encourage you all to think about when these themes come in, these energetic downloads carry specific themes. And like you're saying, you know, we've been discussing the one right now is value. What do you value? And I think that's why currency will be an issue coming up, right?
Yeah.
Also, I'll just state this quickly, the Queen's face being on the most monetary, the most money in the world, and she's now
right.
Just little symbolism there, but sorry, you know, so the value to think about, not, you know, just with your mind, but physical. So what value means on those different levels materialistically. So that's the physical level, you know, value of emotions. Mm-hmm. What emotions do you value? Right? Mm-hmm. How do you value yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? So to really be looking at those different layers of yourself and And so in meditation, finding those different layers, I think it will really accelerate the purging of these programs that no longer help us, right? It will eliminate those kind of behaviors and those old programs to kind of understand sort of where they're stored. It just narrows it down a lot quicker, and you're able to find energetically where you're storing things within those layers.
Right.
Put that
So
out there.
so the way I kind of view it is like you've got these three bodies that are best to operate within phase of each other, like aligned and harmonized. But, you know, we have things that come at us that are designed to make us fearful, and it kind of knocks that one body offline, and it kind of puts the other ones out of alignment.
They're compensating.
Right. So we're constantly being bombarded with these things. And
Yeah.
it's not until you can, like, reach that core
Yes.
that, you know, you're anchored. You know what I mean? It's like beyond what can be sort of toyed with.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought this up too, because this is really, you know, where our energy can get diffused, right?
Yeah.
Because so when it comes in and like those things they're not harmonized and they go out of whack, right? Fight or flight response gets triggered. Boom, the mind goes into taking control. You know, the physical body automatically reacts. We're going on autopilot. This is the big one that's been coming up lately about being on autopilot, knowing when you're on autopilot and you're reacting, right? So it diffuses our energy. We're not in the flow. This is the really important thing to create that manifestation power. You want to be in the flow. So when those things kick off and it's just deharmonized, that flow energy just gets diffused. It gets squandered and misdirected because it's not pure intention, or it's not driven by your higher self. It's like having a vehicle, the car. This is the vehicle, right? And letting your ego drive, as opposed to letting your higher self drive the car to get to where you're going, right? That literally is what's going on right now. And if you get car dreams of being vehicles, is often what it will symbolize is who's driving the car, who's driving. Control of the car. Are there no brakes? And it's really, did I lose you?
No, I still got you. I was just putting a chat up on the screen that it was synchronistic to what you're saying. It's like, I'm so excited. We'll be listening while driving.
Yeah.
I love those little parallel synchronicities. Have you been getting a lot of them? Yeah.
Oh, yes, all the time. Yeah. That's what I watch for now. That's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I used to call them breadcrumbs. Yeah. They're literally the fabric of our reality. I see now. You know, they're not breadcrumbs. They're literally the fabric of our reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry.
No
of course,
problem.
last word.
You're all good. So let's see. We were talking about driving the car. Being in control.
Yeah. And it really is about the higher self is coming into this vehicle. And it's saying, you know, I'm driving now. And this is what happens. So it's really about, you know, the emotional body, the physical body, and the mental body, like releasing control, especially for the mental body. It's really used to having the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And so now it's kind of, you know, a lot of you may find along this process, you'll find where it gets moved to the back seat. You know, it was used to having the driver's seat, and you'll go through a phase where now it's in the back seat, and you'll become hyper aware of its chirping over your shoulder, you know, like the backseat driver, right?
Exactly,
as this process takes over. So, you know, eventually it really is just everybody working in harmony in the drive together. You know, no one trying to take away the steering wheel from the higher self because it got scared, or it thinks we need to worry about this, or, well, shouldn't we do that? Or, you know, those bodies release control to the higher self and can just sit back and enjoy the ride and look at the scenery and have fun, right?
Absolutely.
So there's your analogy for that one.
I love that. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go to the chat here. Scream Engine says, woohoo, gonna catch you live, babies. It's been so long. Yeah, it has been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you guys got any questions or anything like that, just pop them into the chat. We'll keep an eye on you and chime in on anything going on right now. So, for me personally, we've gone through some heavy waves, right? Like, even today, you know, I was like looking at the time, I'm like, can I fit a nap in? I'm just gonna. But then I realized, it's the equinox. I'm probably going to be dealing with some heavy energies, and I resolved it with a little caffeine. But normally I would just do 20 or 30-minute power nap if I feel it, because a lot of times I feel like we're integrating all sorts of things, and and those naps can sometimes bring about some cool lucid dreams and stuff too. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, that's what you really know, and that's, I think, is interesting. That's always the case.
Yeah,
you know, you're getting zapped, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just go lie down, and then woo.
Yeah, or you'll wake up like real sweaty, like, where the hell have I been? You know? I was battling
like 105 degrees. Yeah, covered in sweat, and they just ran a marathon.
Right.
Yeah, and it's only been an hour. What happened?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, interesting this week. So I really felt the compression and got some messages again about this, a few days ago of sort of consolidating timelines. And, you know, I think, again, we can all experience, time isn't what we think it is. And, you know, so my experience of consolidating timelines can be different from somebody else's, or, you know, their timing of it and how it feels. But, for me, it's like jet lag, you know, the sleeping patterns get all shifted off. I don't know. Am I coming or going? Is it day or is it night? And so I do see that sort of in the losing track of time. Also, there'll be an increase in deja vu. And sort of this really like, hold on, have I been this here and done this?
Yeah.
Has a dreamlike quality, a familiarity. You may get feelings of floods of like nostalgia as well, right?
And the really weird one that we've talked about before in the weeks past or whatever, but not on the air, that I've worked with people that actually had this happen, where they'll either get memories of a life they never lived, right? Or little snippets of something that they're like, that's not my life. What was I just remembering, right? But it was my life, but not this life. You know, what am I remembering? And it's not always earthly, right? People remember like being on ships and stuff. Like, I remember pulling a craft into a dock. I don't know where that came from. Why do I remember that, you know? But now I'm having that sort of thing happen, where I'm like remembering this townhouse and I love the backyards. There was something right there. I can't remember what it was or anything, but I know that I would have to pull around back to the garage that sort of was in the basement or underneath. So it kind of went down and around, and you pulled in the garage. I can remember living at this place that I've never lived, and I remember whatever was out there. It could be a lake, a beach, or what. I don't know what it was, but I loved looking that direction. You know, what was it? You know. So, weird things like that. Yeah.
This is why I say, like, we can really be experiencing this very, very differently.
Yeah.
But it's like collapsing into itself. Like, we're collapsing into ourselves, and there's a consolidation going on.
Right, like merging of timelines, if you want to think of it that way, almost like different.
And ourself too, I think. Even
right, but like different choices we've made and the experience we've learned from different lifetimes and choices we've made, kind of converging into this lifetime and making us a fuller part of our higher self, right? And that would kind of fit with the whole Mandela effect thing, you know, where you have people that are like, what the heck, he died, now he's back again. We got several of those where we could have been experiencing another timeline, but then a timeline merged where they hadn't passed away yet, or like Cynthia Sue Larson, they just sort of popped on the scene out of nowhere for you. Or maybe you remember her dying. Somebody remembered her dying a few years ago, but she had only really gotten sick in this timeline and pulled through. So it's like
maybe you remember both.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of the dual memory stuff going on. You're like, wow, I
Yeah,
remember a
and
bunch
there's
of
a
ways.
reason for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, as much as what's going on, in the collective consciousness, this stretching of the polarity is uncomfortable. Another thing that's sort of going on is this consolidation within the polarities, right?
Yeah.
This sort of congealing together of consciousnesses, I see, like
Yeah.
grouping together. And I think that, part of these groups is we're experiencing as we sort of coagulate together
Mm-hmm.
as a collective consciousness, unifying our thought form, and it's getting powered by higher selves. And really, we are all one. Like it.
Right.
So we're like grouping together. We're coming together, and the more we're aware, and the more we're plugged in, it's like pooling everybody, and it's part of the separation process.
Right,
And
but it's
part of
almost
what,
like a battery, right? So you got the positive and negative end of the battery, and now
yeah,
you're seeing this increase in both, and this consolidation, as you put it, but it's increasing the overall potential energy between
yeah,
the
yeah,
two within this
yeah.
energy system, right?
Yeah.
So
And I'm
that's
seeing like those like
intense.
charged groups of like charged particles, like groups of collections like on either ends of the polarities sort of magnetizing together.
Right,
Like, and it'll just keep until it's all unified, right? And so as that happens, there's a unification of experience, which is a collapsing of timelines. So, I think it's really hard for us to kind of imagine or picture exactly what timelines are, and
yeah.
I think our perception of what they can be from sort of this linear reality is a little off. And
Yeah, because it's
I think a
probably more
lot,
like a soup than it is a string, like we tip it. But it's easier to
yeah,
talk about it in terms of strings and timelines than it is this sort of soup of consciousness.
well, it
So
is more
it's
of a
just
soup because we're all in
right,
here. And I think,
right,
I saw a good analogy. Like you could have, a four-way intersection, right?
right,
And a person on each corner, and they see an accident, and you have four separate perspectives and perceptions of what happened. And essentially you have four separate kind of timelines, because we're experiencing time differently. Like there's no way for you to know that really that I'm experiencing the time the same way,
except for Mandela effects and things like that.
in the same, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, but in this moment, how do you know really that your experience, not the actual like tick, 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 but your experience or perception of how quickly time is moving
yeah,
or not is different from yours,
yeah,
right?
hmm,
So essentially and our perception of that experience, of the experience of time and the experience itself is different. And I think that's kind of more what the timelines are. So as we're consolidating our consciousness, that it's unifying more with the intention of the higher self, not the intention of our physical body, our mental body, and our emotional body, but what unto thee, what is that direction.
right,
And we're unifying to that. We're coagulating together in the ether, and that is like bringing in more power. It's magnetic. And I think this is where this tipping point hits in. It's like they collect. The group gets bigger, 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 and then snap. There's a moment, like 100th monkey or whatever it is. I know we keep saying 100th monkey, but there's layer
absolutely.
of how we're experiencing this,
It's so
right?
funny because there's that parallel, right, between the 5G, like make sure you upgrade to the 5G and all this stuff, but there's a parallel of the 5D that's available, right? That Christ
Right.
consciousness is like upgrade to that, and the more people
Yeah.
we can get on that 5D level, that higher
Yeah.
consciousness level, that really benefits everyone.
Yes.
The best, the most, that's the best
Well,
way
it
to
really
go. But
is. It really is. This is the distinct question. Are you going to evolve through technology, or are you going to evolve through like you're in your physical, your inner technology, the technology that we have in our DNA and our higher self.
Yeah. And it's
Like
all
what's
coming
in
online.
here,
Yeah.
right? Is that going to come online? Are you going to invest in those upgrades?
Right.
Right? Or are you going to upgrade your phone? It really is black or white.
Yeah.
You know,
Isn't that wild,
technology,
though?
that's the real thing. You know, it's not that technology is bad, but are you going to allow technology to do the work for you? Are you just going to sit back on your laurels and, you know, it just to make life easier, or do the hard work inside yourself? Because we're programmed. We're programmed just like those phones are programmed, and we need to take control of the programs that exist within us.
Exactly.
Remove all the fake stuff, the redundant, the things that don't serve.
All the cookies
And
on our
all the
operating
cookies.
system.
Right. Remove them all. And then we literally, and we go to high speed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the, you know, this trick. It's like once you can disengage, you know, those other bodies from running the show, you'd think, well, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to know what to do? Or like, don't you have to plan? Shouldn't you worry? You know, what if I forget? Or, you know, what if I don't know what to do?
Isn't it
it's
like
a different connection?
It's sort of like moving beyond that point of having to know. It's like, you know, you get to a point where you just know that you'll know what you need to know when you need to know, rather than sort of running around frantically, like, you know, I'm, you know, do enough
Right.
research or.
Well, your higher self knows.
Right. That's why I love doing the work
Your
I
source.
do, because it helps people go within to their connection, you know. And I always felt like that was one of the Mandela effects, being the, you know, Grand Central Station, and it's the Grand Central Terminal now. And I think we're all these Grand Central Terminals. We all can hack the system, so to speak, from within.
That's right.
Through our intentions. We don't need the technology. That's sort of a diversionary. Oh, I use this.
It's a distraction.
Right. You can learn a language. You can just download an app in like minutes, and you'll speak a language fluently. And, you know, these are the things, you know, to entice you, right?
That's right. And that's it. We're like disconnecting all the old hardware from Radio Shack. and realizing we can get a high-speed connection, you know, and that's really what being in the flow is. And because your higher self you'll know what you need to know. And
you're okay with not knowing. Like, I'm okay with not knowing the next step. As long as my higher self knows, I'm cool. It's liberating feeling, actually. Especially now with everything changing all the time, you know, and not knowing what to believe, you know, out of what's being said, which is not much for me these days, you know, if I'm hearing off TV or something like that, right? So it's like going within is really the only way you can direct yourself. And like you said, not from the emotions, because emotions, right, you might be tricked into doing something like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. And it's my heart desire to be able to pay my bills. Like, no, is that like fear disguised as love? To be able to pay your bills, right? So there's a deeper level of knowing things will be okay no matter what your choice is, and not to be manipulated through fear disguised as love, right? How sinister is that? When you see it, you see it, you can't unsee it. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, this is mean stuff going around, right?
But we got to call it for what things are now.
Absolutely,
you know, and it's this is why we've been given this higher discernment, you know, is also to be able to identify not just that outside of ourselves, but that which exists within us. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're getting there.
We're getting there. Times are getting exciting. And
every day, just a little bit stronger.
So I heard, you know, we got to talk about dates because, you know, everybody else is talking about it. So 3 days from now, the 24th, that was one date somebody threw out. You know?
Yeah, they've been,
and then the 30th, that's another date, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I've heard about all sorts of things, and I don't know. I'm like that about it. I'm like, stuff's happening every day. You know what I mean?
Every day. Yeah. And it, you know, a lot of this. So what I do see coming up, whatever it is it's going to be like distraction level. Like I do think that they're hoping to pull something with the distraction level of like 9/11, right? But whether or not that'll succeed, and I think on a couple fronts, I don't think just one. So I mean, we all know the financial collapse is coming. I'm sure that's going to be a big part of what's going on within the next couple weeks. The symbolism's all there for it, and we've certainly had enough warning. So
Are you thinking
it's
globally
hard.
or locally?
Yeah. Well, the Vatican's called back in all their funds by the 30th of this month. And I mean, it's going to happen. But and I think there'll be something else. And
who knows?
But I don't even want, it's just going to play out. It's a lot of show right now. And I think it's important to remember that there's going to be a lot of sensationalism. Really good time to just turn that stuff off and realize, again, especially talking about these different bodies, these different layers, and we don't realize how our emotional body is used through this media, and because so much is our mental, and we think, right? But how much it can be really looshing us and weakening us, and it's purposeful. And I think it's good to just keep an awareness to, understand when you kind of want to see what's going on, and but be aware of how your body is feeling and reacting, and just tune into that and make it a more of a priority than the news. I think that's really important. Because we can get caught up in the focus, and it's going to do that. It's going to want to put hooks in your eyeballs and keep you focused in on the edge of your seat, right? And just loosh ya.
Plug in the loosh hose.
Yeah, so I just really want to caution everybody, just like, it's okay. Like, don't be critical on yourself. It's going to happen to all of us, because it's going to, there's going to be stuff that goes down that's going to be like, what the hell? Right. what is going on? And we're, going to want to see it. But just to remind yourself of the tactic, and remind yourself that there's a purpose to what they're doing. And a lot of it's sensationalism, and it always has to be. And what's going on in your bubble, in your neighborhood, in your little zone. And just focus on that. Get it outside in nature, breathing the air as much as possible, and everything with a bit of perspective. A lot of these scenarios that have gone on, you can really see, this thing will happen, and this thing is bad, and we judge it as bad at first appearance when it happens. But when you look at how it plays out, and the after effects, and the alchemy of the whole situation upon completion, it was bad, but it also, this happened because of it. It led to this. And so there's going to be a lot of that. So don't make, first judgments can be a really tricky thing, because there'll be a lot of misrepresentation, and what may be presented as bad initially isn't really that bad, or it may turn out to be a benefit. So it's best that we just take a step back and let them hash it out for a little while.
Right.
They'll have plenty of other people to watch and pay attention to their show.
Well, we were doing that at first. When we get together, we talk about a lot of things that we can't really talk about on here. But as time went on, we're sort of just talking about stuff we can talk about on here now, because it's we kind of know what's going on. And it's like, I'll look at
I did from square one. Like, don't put the test in your nose, and don't put the
right.
I knew right from the day, but you can't say anything. So what was even the point of talking? For a while, I think that was the frustrating thing. It's what's the point to sit here and have to bite my lip like every 5 seconds over anything we want to talk about.
Yeah.
So, and how it may be affecting us in different ways and what it kind of represents symbolically. And, I think for a time too, there's just so many opinions out there.
Yeah.
Like I said, back then, nobody's listening because they're too busy talking right now. So
Yeah.
it's just best to take a back seat, just chill, watch the show. Plenty to do. And we've kept our talks going. But I really felt like, and I think you did too, I felt like this shift, it was like we went through a tunnel. Like it was like, okay, let's go dark for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could feel the tunnel. And then I could feel, when we're coming out of it, I'm like, I can start to see the light. It's like, okay, I think it's time to come back out. There's a whole new wave of people, and you and I have both learned so much, over these last 4 years about this process and going through this process and what it is and how it affects us.
And even looking at things, I use it as an opportunity whenever I would get triggered about a person or something going on to go in meditation and really try to find the love in that, whether it was appreciation or, compassion or whatever it was. But a lot of things I saw, like a lot of the censorship we see going on now that's hiding a lot of what's going on is actually sparing people from seeing things that, so I was like even shown how like everything's backfiring. It's like, it's almost like on a deeper level, it's like, wow, they probably should have done the exact opposite, But instead they're trying to hide this secret and they're sparing people of other things happening. And, it's like, I don't know. It's like they don't think very far. They wouldn't be very good at chess, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good practice for us right now, like realizing that realizing that you can release judgment.
Yeah.
And this is a big thing, I said to you a couple of weeks ago, it's a big part of this because we're judging everything as polarity system, right? And it keeps us in the polarity because we're deciding this is good, this is bad. Oh, you want to play the polarity game. That's great.
And that's what that triggering is. It's the polarity game, playing it itself out in you. And
this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad.
Let's go see what I need to do with this. And it's an excellent opportunity for growth, to do that.
But we can step outside of it. Like, you don't have to judge. Yeah. Just because you're here, you don't have to make a judgment. You don't have to actually have an opinion on everything. Yeah. The old me wouldn't like that idea at all. Gosh, I was really good at opinions.
Right. We all. That's all of us. Yeah.
So, but now it's like, what do I know? Like, I don't know. But there is divine knowledge. There is true truth. And I don't know if it's necessarily found in this reality, right? Because of this polarity experience. But like I was saying, that the more we can remove that judgment is really what I've really realized is what you have left once you remove judgment is love. It's just love. It's just divine love.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what's remains.
Yeah.
Once you remove the judgment,
it does change your perspective with everything. It makes you, it kind of takes you to the point of realizing, like my daughter just asked me like the day before yesterday, she's like, what do you really know? I'm like,
That's right.
I think I've come to the point where I can actually say I'm okay with not being sure of anything that I know.
No, you don't really know.
I don't know. You know what I mean?
No. I don't know.
What I think I've experienced and stuff, but beyond that, I don't feel like I need to go and try to switch anybody's mind about anything at all. Just be loving and, let
respect their experience as long as they're not, hurting anybody, right?
Exactly.
Well, the innocent. I think we all get that. Yeah. It's like some things.
Yeah, some things you can't help, I've been there before where pick up my kids from school and some kids start fighting and I jump out to break them up before I even realize it, you know what I mean? Things like that. It's like, God, why was I put in this place, But you know what I mean?
Because you're compassionate. Yeah. So this world does need that. I think that's the tricky thing, but it's all in stages. This removal of judgment, and that it's a tricky thing. We're not saying that bad is okay. To do bad things is okay. I think it's just as I get to this sort of higher language. Of archetypes, realizing that everything has its shadow and light. We do. That we have our light and dark, and it's part of the show.
It's part of the
Yeah.
experience and figuring it out and
Yeah.
learning what not
Yeah.
to do or whatever. But yeah, I absolutely agree. It's like if they knew better, they wouldn't be doing it. So it's like forgive them for they know not what they do. You know what I mean? At some level, you know what I mean?
At some level, they do, but
Right, but they don't. It's like
see, I think that's where I see it now, as well, that like these characters, that it's not like their higher self is in there running the show and driving the car. Their wounded emotional system and their mental ego is driving the car and is in charge, right? And the spiritual body is in the trunk tied up,
yeah.
and that's their experience, but I'm not in the car with them, so
Exactly. Yeah, because there's a whole pain body that Eckhart Tolle talks about. Where it's like, so, and I guess that would tie in with the emotional body, but you make decisions off your previous pains, and some of these might be things that
that's
happened
right.
from the time they were 2 years old or something. You know what I mean? So
That's
on
right.
some level, it is a lot like you're working in some kind of psych ward, and people just aren't all there, right? It's like cut them some slack. They're kind of like, you know what I mean? You're like, hey, cut them some slack. They're kind of like
They're misfiring. They're a
right.
misfired
Maybe
program.
not to the point of being institutionalized, but you can look at some of the things they do and think, well, I wouldn't do that. That's not in my normal
Right.
wheelhouse. That's like sinister
Right.
stuff, right? And you're like, well, they've
Right.
got to be twisted on some level, right? There has to be something they're not seeing. So it gets back to the forgive them for they know not what they do. They know what they're doing. They know they're harming people, but they don't see the deeper implications of them actually harming themselves in that act of harming others. You see what I mean? It's
Well, you know what, about that, I had an interesting idea a couple weeks ago, sort of come into me in this vision of sort of having an understanding that a soul coming in and performing that character,
mm-hmm,
um to come in as a being of like a being of love, right?
mm-hmm,
And to come in and play the villain
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is like, there's a sacrifice to them doing that, like that maybe there's more than, oh, they just whatever, they don't get it, they don't understand the damage that we're doing. Well, maybe we don't understand. Maybe we don't understand like the greater story. Like we've said, what is the great adventure without the villain?
All right.
And I kind of see it more like, you have all these actors on a stage. Well, they step off, they play their part and they step off. Are you going to hate the actor that played the role?
Yeah.
And that maybe they step in to play these roles for this story arc.
Right. Well, that is definitely the higher level, but I'm talking about, at this level,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's just wired to do what they're supposed to do, like in their
Right.
character, right?
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize they're a character, right?
That's
they think
right.
they are their character.
That's it.
Right?
Yes.
So
They think they are their character.
Even you look at, I don't want to say his name, but the bug eating guy, or he even dressed the part. I'm like, look at the suit he's wearing. He looks like Dr. Evil and stuff, right?
The bug eating guy.
The Schwab guy or whatever. And it's like
the guy who eats bugs. The guy, mom would say, the guy who wants us to eat crickets.
Right. you will eat the bug. That guy.
A cricket lover.
But I mean, even like the suit, I'm like, that's so weird. It's like,
yeah,
he
looks
can't
like
even
Dr.
help but play the part, even in his clothing choices.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I see it as everyone definitely at that level. There is a level like that, but I'm talking about just people not knowing that they're even characters in this cosmic play, But you do hear that, my work with people, and they've got like an abusive person in their life, right? That was put there, on the higher level. They decided to play that role, and they both agreed to it because they were going to learn things from it. It was going to be this experience to come into this game or cosmic play and play this out for the sole purpose of gaining experience,
Yeah.
And it always kind of ties back to love at the end of the day,
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thought too, is realizing that you yourself have played the villain and a good guy for other people,
Absolutely.
willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah.
You know, there's people out there that you may know of or you may not know of that you are the villain. And like, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that maybe that's okay. That like, that's part of what their experience, and to like, even just allow it, that I like, it's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay that, you know, if some people choose to have me be that character, that's just part of their, but that's not who I am.
Right.
It's no longer who I am. Their perception of whether I'm the villain or the good guy in their story is like, I'm great. Have at it. Like, all yours. Enjoy. I hope I was a good villain.
Right.
Like, if I'm gonna do it right. And to like be okay. Like, you don't. This is, you know, where they tap into your, well, you want to be a good person, you know, well, you want to, don't you, you know, you should care, other people should care, the virtue, you know, they hook you in with the virtue and the shame. Well, you want to make it seem like you're a good person. Right. With all this virtue signaling. It's like, well, what if you go out to the opposite end of that and be like, you know what, if you want to make me a villain, cool. Like, I'm okay with it. And if you want to, if I'm an angel, that's great too. You know, I really hope you enjoy those roles and those characters of who I am in your story. But it's your story.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay with you having it. And I can be all of those things for all of you. I can be everything and nothing, you know, everyone and no one, and be okay. So, you know,
And we've all done
It's
that.
a new
I mean,
me.
that's like some of the most cringy things that I have to think about. You know, I'm like, oh, it was clearly that person's Satan that day. You know, but you know, and then like, you can live in regret, but you can also realize like, oh, thank goodness for that, and be appreciative for that, because you're like, at least I won't make that mistake now that I'm like in my 40s and stuff. I'm glad I made it in my 20s, so that I wouldn't do it now. So I've learned things, you know, and it is sort of this process of realizing that you can't remove all those things you wish you wouldn't have done because they made you who you are today. It's just, are you going to allow them to help you to grow into a better person, or are you going to allow them to sort of pull you down and, you know, make you feel bad or live in the past? So part of living in the now is realizing we're these people we are from learning those lessons and doing the stupid things we've done. I've done so many stupid things that, you know, I'm so glad that I learned them before. And I still do stupid things, but thank goodness not as bad as before. You know?
Yeah, I'm just quicker to sort of catch myself now, right? Or I won't go to vigorously defend a stupid thing I did like I would have before, you know. But yeah, you can really let go a lot of that, because I mean, it is what it is. It happened. We did it. You know, we were good, we were bad, we were stupid, we were smart, we were loving, we were hateful, we were all kinds of different things. We were human.
Yeah, we were human.
We were human
by our emotional body, right? Now
that's right. And, you know, understanding that a lot of these things, you know, that I wasn't driving my vehicle, you know, that my emotional body was driving the vehicle, or my ego was driving the car, you know, but my higher self wasn't. So now it is.
Right.
What am I I'm going to criticize, you know, those other bodies for controlling the situation. Of course they made mistakes. Of course they screwed up. Of course they acted inappropriately. You know, it's like asking a 6-year-old to be responsible for something an adult should be responsible for.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And that kind of gets back to this whole idea that, you know, the angry God theory, you know, it's like, would God really be mad at you for stumbling and making mistakes and stuff? It's like, are you more loving than God? So this all ties back into like that whole religious programming that a lot of us have had to work.
The God of judgment or the God of love. Do you remember? Which is what we were talking about before when I said, because once you remove judgment, because I'll get rid of the God of judgment that I feel like a lot of sort of the Bible is molded around in the New Testament. There's a lot of judgment there.
Yeah.
Skip him, because he's mastered the polarity as far as I'm concerned. Because once you remove the judgment, all that's left is love. So that's the God that I'm praying to now, not the God of judgment.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the compassion at the end of the day that you find wins people over, rather than the debating and things like that. I've had to really let go in relationships, just try to keep it loving and cordial and things like that, and not go into areas. And a lot of us feel that drive, right? Like, and we bring that from religion, right? Like, well, I've got to save them, and all you can do is tell people and then leave it at that. I mean, if you hammer them over the head with things that you see, they're just going to stop talking to you, you know, and it's going to, I think it's more important to sort of keep that relationship a little bit closer. That way, you know, you can talk to them when the time comes, or they feel comfortable talking to you when they do start to open up. Because a lot of times we planted seeds and someone else is watering them, and you want to stay in a position that, you know, you can help them when they do move further along or figure something out, or remember you saying something and now they're like, oh, I need to talk to so-and-so about that. You know what I mean? So,
I think it can actually be quite cruel and egocentric to really be pushing somebody right now away from their core beliefs. And because, you know, I think you can forget how terrifying that may be, and can understand why this triggered reaction that they have. Like, this is fight or flight, you know, they're defending. If they accept what you say as true, their whole premise of their reality and why they do what they do and who they do it for, like, all of that is gone. Like, what like, that's a lot that you're asking them to just, you know, take away the foundation of their reality.
Yeah.
You know, that the government is good and they pay their taxes, and they, like, this is why they're so scared. You know, why they get so triggered. You know, if you can understand it, because what they will lose is the scope of their reality, like that everything's okay. You know, I think, you know, any of us who was sort of jolted awake, you know, into like learning, like, oh my God, this isn't what I thought it was. Right. Or having your whole, you know, your belief system. Like, if it was a very sudden thing, I think you would understand, like, it's scary stuff. You have where do you put your feet? What do you ground to? What do you adhere to? They would be lost.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have more compassion for that. That's why they're triggered, why they're defensive. Because if you take those things away from them, the whole concept of their reality is gone. And that's like death. That's like death to these people. It equates to the same thing as dying. And that's why it's because it's the death of the ego and the whole construct of reality and what they think their place in the world is.
Shattering paradigms, you know what I mean? And at a time like that, it's like it's more important for us to just be there to let people know, you know, it's okay.
It's going to happen. Like, right. Listen, you know, and not in your timing. Like, it's going to happen not because of you, right? It's going to happen because their higher soul is and it's on their plan. And you may be a part of that and you may not be. But, you know, to take a sledgehammer at this point to anybody's belief system, they're going to be very triggered and they're going to be scared. And there's a really good reason for that. It's the premise of their whole reality that you're asking to take away from them. So let's stop trying to maybe grab it out of their hands and yank it away from them. Like, let them have the time to sort of question and slowly examine on their own, because the energies are going to do it. Our collective consciousness is going to do it. You just being in yourself, thinking, you know, those higher thoughts and being that way, exude it out into the collective. It does the work for you. You don't need to physically with your hands and mentally with your mind, you know, get in there and beseech them to let go of everything they hold dear. You know,
right?
Because that's what it is at this point for a lot of these people. So It's terrifying. Even though they don't act like they're scared, they are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when you think things work one way and they don't, it's the same thing that a lot of us went through with the Mandela effect. You're like, whoa, it's like cognitive dissonance sets in, and it's just a
Right.
lot to take in all at one time. So I
Yeah.
completely have compassion for people,
But
through
yeah,
that stage.
you can have more compassion for the ones that have like real triggered reactions to these things if you can understand what's at stake for them,
Hmm.
why they're reacting that way, and it's fight or flight mode because it's at the core of their belief systems of who they are, their place in society, what this world is and what it means to them. And you're asking to take the very fabric of that away. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
It is a lot like jerking the rug from underneath somebody. So,
yeah, and I know we want, I think that part of the thing too, where it can be misleading to think that like we're off track, like because people aren't getting, people aren't waking up, and people don't see, um, and that somehow that is stalling us, our personal and that's not the case at all. It may be tricky for some, pardon me, some that were kind of like ahead of the game, and
hmm,
we're here to hold a certain frequency and hold a light. It's not like we have to do something. We just have to be, and we have to learn to be ourselves, and stop being on autopilot and stop being programmed, and um, being a purified consciousness and
yeah.
adding to the collective. And it's like, that's it. We don't need to go up there and shake them awake. We can actually do it etherically just by clearing our own field, and then it just
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like change yourself and watch the world around you. It's like we don't brush the mirror in the morning, do we?
that's right.
It's
That's
like you become
that's
more of a
really,
frequency match for the world you want to see, and you see it
yeah.
begin to emerge right in front of you. And
Yeah.
while you're doing that, you're embodying more of that higher self as you move upward. So it's
Yeah,
all a
and
natural process. It's happening,
that's right.
but it's just
That's
not
right.
maybe as quick as some of us would like. But I guarantee you guys, it's happening. You can tap in.
Yeah.
I can feel things are so much different than 5 years ago when I first got here on YouTube. Oh my gosh, it's way different,
Yeah.
you know?
And it'll be less about things happening to you,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
taking it like it's happening to you, or these circumstances and these things going on. And it will get more and
It's
more,
happening
it's
for
just
you,
it's just
right?
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a reflection of this process, and I'm understanding this process, and just continue to work on being present with myself and present with the now. That's really all you have to do, is just learn all about that, and everything else will kind of fall with it,
Yeah.
because you can't help learn about the different layers then of your body and where you hold your energies and your programs, and you can't help learning all those other things, how downloads, you'll get more clarity of how higher messages come in to you and your body. And
Yeah. It
yeah.
is like it seems to be kind of a natural process that begins to happen as you begin to realize more and more you're not your thoughts, you're not your body, you're not and you realize you're just like the observer of all of these things. You're the observer of the person who was triggered, right? You weren't the one that got triggered.
Mm.
You aren't the voice in the head either. You're just
Mm-hmm.
listening to it. You're the observer of all things, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
as you pull back to that, you begin to see like, oh, that was totally emotional triggering right there, and that was totally, and you begin to work through these things. Like we talked a while back, like when we get angry, that feeling in your body goes away after 90 seconds, but many of us just play it over and over again all day, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Keep thinking about what you would have said or what finger you should have stuck up if it was somebody on the road or something like that, but you can allow it to ruin your whole day. And I used to do that. But that was the
Yeah.
road to now when I catch things in my mind and realize like, wow, and then you can cut somebody some slack, like maybe they're trying to get to the hospital to see their kid or something. You can come up with excuses, whatever it really takes, because we never know what the heck's going on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
All we know is
Mm-hmm.
our response to it.
That's right. Yep.
That's really it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think, you brought up, it's interesting that you brought up sort of understanding that we're infinite awareness having this experience. And because Mom just brought this up yesterday, saying David Icke, a speech that she listened to, and he was saying, you know, if you tell yourself every day, remind yourself that you're infinite awareness, you know, having an experience within 30 days, you know, you'll be a whole new person, or you have these new understandings and everything. And I was trying to relay to her that that's something I've been practicing for some time now, literally consciously in the moment. Like, I am aware and I am infinite and I'm having this experience. But what is coming to me lately is I am not just aware of this experience. There's a flow. There's a connection. There's a little more. We were talking about this in relation to art before we came on the show, and the experience of an artist and being tapped in as artist and sort of drawing the perfect line, and you know, being so in tune in that moment of the pencil in your hand and the paper and the connection to the art that is coming out of you. And it's a direct expression of yourself, and I'm infinitely aware of this expression of myself. It is one, right? The line on the page and the perfection of it, and me, we are the same. I am the line, and it is me, and it is expressed on this page, and I am engrossed in the act of expressing it, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm realizing lately, as I get more in my artistic mode, I get captivated by nature. I get captivated by trees, bushes, leaves, color, everything. I'm like, how would I paint it? And I go into this stage where I'm literally painting in my mind. I'm painting what I'm seeing, and I'm breaking it all down, and I'm just as entranced and in this process. And it's showing me it's the same thing. And it's trying to show me this higher level of this tip of understanding that we are not just, infinite awareness. Just, I'm just here. Wait, like, right. Oh, look at that. Wow, that's great. No, that there's a little bit more to this, that we are that magic, that there's really something magical going on here in this expressing forth this perfection. We think it's outside of ourselves, but it is. We are the art. The art is us. The art's outside of us. Like we, so it's still kind of uncovering. This has just been over the last week, these overlays of downloads trying to show me what this experience is, and that it is more, I will say, it's not just infinite awareness, just having this experience, but it's infinite awareness actually expressing itself creatively. Even if you're not an artist, you don't even realize it, right? It's pouring forth from us in a way that we don't realize. And it is a part of us, and there is perfection to it, even if what we're seeing is disharmony. There's perfection that is flowing forth from us. Yeah. So we're not just here as bystanders. We are in this artwork, this piece of artwork that is expressed from us. I think is what I'm coming to understand. So,
hey, Catherine. Hi, Mom.
Oh, it's Mom. Hi, Mom. Everybody say hi, Mom.
Chat. It actually opened up the old stream for some reason, so I switched the information over. So I wasn't even getting the chat until like a couple of minutes ago, guys. Sorry.
Well, I have to have my glasses on if I see and be looking over there. So, and I'll forget anyways. Never get a darn thing done if I look at that chat.
Susan says, fear disguised as love. That's profound. And it really is. It's like once you realize like leading by the heart, then you have to figure out that. You're like, is this really love, or is it fear disguised as love, right?
It's amazing how much love can be used to control people too.
That's so funny because the example I thought about is like one of my daughters asked me, she goes, should I say something to one of her siblings about something? I'm like, well, I don't know. It just kind of comes down to, would you be responding out of fear or anger, or would you be responding out of love, you know? And then she's like, well, I don't know. Is it fear that, you know, this person that they're with, you know, it was about a mate, a potential date or something, right? And it was like, I don't know if I like this person, but I don't know if they see it. And I'm like, so is it out of fear that it's the wrong person or that they're going to make the wrong choice? So, you know, you really can get into this, you know, idea of, you know, well, I just feel like, you know, there's someone better for them, or, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and then that's love, or, you know what I'm saying? So it can get pretty
Get
messy
clear.
there when you're trying to really dig away, but you have to think about it. You're like, really, what's this feeling I'm having? Is it fear? Is it love? Or is it, you know? And a lot of times you'll find like, wow, I don't need to say anything. You know what I mean? Especially when you realize people have a whole higher entourage that's helping them, right?
Right.
So
that's a great example. So, because you talk about that, like there's a prompting, right? Should I say something? Like I feel like I should say something. So there you go. That's it. I love that, because the emotional body felt something is now prodding the mind to do something about it. I don't feel comfortable with this.
Right.
Do something.
Yeah.
Right. And then the mind comes in but the mind has to understand, right? Yeah. Which it usually doesn't. Usually the mind goes, okay, I got it. I know what to do.
Right.
Off I go. Right? Takes the physical body. Let's go.
Right.
We got this, right? But the emotional body, we never explore those depths to say, well, why were you feeling that way? Well, what's the prompt? Right. You know, so that's a really good question, you know, why? Like, what is your reason for thinking that you need to say something? Truly, really. And it's often the emotional, never mind the thought, because the mind will go in, well, we have this reason because because I care, you know, because I care about this. And okay, all right. What's your emotional body feeling? What's your emotional body afraid of? Mm-hmm. What's it panicking over? What's it really uncomfortable about? Be clear about that, because the mind will give you all kinds of great excuses and reasons and theories.
But there could be intuition too, you know. So I'm not saying that if you get this really strong hit that like, I feel that person's dangerous or something, right? You don't want to ignore that either. So it's like, you don't want to think if it's rooted in fear or something, but you could always just share it without, you know, getting, attached to the outcome or of how it's received or whatever. But you can just, if you feel like you're getting something intuitively about something, which I know a lot of people in our community do, right?
Well, this is a thing, you know, I think, you know, if you internally ask yourself these questions, you know, you'll get the answer, right? Yeah. And I think anybody who's spent a considerable amount of time, you know, in practice and sort of asking themselves the deeper questions of why they're motivated to do anything they do, then you kind of just do that all the time, right? But you know, for newcomers or newbies, you know, just sort of, you know, getting through this, it's your first answer. If you ask inside your head, you'll hear it, you know. Well, is this intuition or is this my emotions?
And you know what's funny about that is I've typically been just the opposite way whenever it's an intuitive hit like that. Like there was this one time we were on the way home from church. I was a little kid, and my mom was going to stop at White Castle's and get us cheeseburgers and a shake, and I was so excited about it. And then I blurted out, I feel like we're not supposed to go. And I immediately regretted it, right?
Right.
So a lot of times it's like that. If you know, you usually won't want to do it if it's something you're supposed to do. Like you'll think through it and you're like, why did I say that? You know, and I should have said that. So you know, it's so funny the way that plays out, you know, and it's like, if you're really wanting to, it's probably because you've concocted a reason, you know what I'm saying, that, you know, so.
Well, often too, you know, if you just give yourself a pause.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say that
you
if you
come
wait.
to it, just slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down. Because, you know, if you're rushing and if you feel the urgency, if you're in urgency mode, your higher self's not driving. Because your higher self's got all the time in the world. It's got all the time in the world. Right. It's not a problem. You know, so if there's like that, then you know.
Flight too, because
then you know it's like, okay, the the physical body, the mental body, and the emotional body are trying to like drive. Okay, we got it. Watch out! You got to swerve. We got, trying to grab the steering wheel because they see an object. Meanwhile, the higher self is like, dude, I got it. So, yeah.
Fiona says, lovely to hear you both bouncing off each other with these interesting times and feelings. It's all constantly changing. Go with the flow. Totally agree with it.
Yeah. I think that, that really is, just deeper and deeper understandings of what does go with the flow mean? What does that mean exactly? Right? Just go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
But what is it? It does mean something. Like there's some really, deep stuff to that is trying to be taught, and that the flow, the higher self exists in the flow, and it's trying to come in and teach us how to be in the flow. And basically all of these things are all about just bringing us into the flow, which is a divine intention. It's a true intention. It's an intention that has all the knowledge, right? It doesn't matter that you don't know. It does. So you just have to go with the current, and how do we do that?
Because a lot of us want to go kicking and screaming, right? We're trying to hang on to the rocks in the river, and like we're getting all cut up.
Yeah.
Go with the flow. It's better to just go with it and trust.
Yeah, you got to grab your windsurfing board and ride the tide. Yeehaw! Yeah. You got right.
It's been such a blast talking to you today, again.
Yeah.
Time's sake. We need to at least maybe do this once a month or something.
Yeah, I think we'll try to do that, Just once a month is good. Just check in.
Yeah, that sounds
good. It's probably good when we do something regular, try to keep it somewhat regular or keep us in line, because otherwise time's like...
I know, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, a lot of times we discuss things like, oh, that would have been great in a video. I've got my Post-its here now. I'm going to start jotting it down during our weekly, the 3 between our shows. I'm going to jot it down so we can go over stuff again, because a lot of times...
we can remember what because we get pretty nitty gritty, eh? We do. We talk about a lot of stuff, and...
Yeah.
But, you and Travis and Mom, too, have been such a big part of my process in learning about myself, and downloads, and learning, what I'm good at, too. And, yeah, it's been such a great value, the three of you. So you're here with me, but definitely we got to say a shout out to Mom, but I also really want to say a shout out to Travis, who I love so much.
Travis, love you.
Yeah. So, and three of you have had such an important role in my own learning.
Yeah, me too. Think how much we've grown. I'm so glad I documented this whole thing, because I'm not like a journal keeper kind of guy or anything.
Me neither.
So this was perfect that we could, we've got these little snippets of time and how we thought about things and how much we've evolved in our thought and consciousness.
Well, it's been amazing, the affirmations, from the three of you, through dreams, through circumstances and situations, and, what you're going through and contemplating, and how, that streams through all three of you. It's taught me so much about how to read this reality, and what it consists of.
Sort of. The trends, the spiritual trends.
Yeah, me, my archetypes, my themes. I understand it. Like, I'm getting it now.
Right.
Like I'm getting it. Like, what the breadcrumbs are, and why we get these affirmations, and sort of what the fabric of what this reality is made of. And it's made of these archetypal themes. And I kind of see it like a huge tapestry, like, massive old ones that would depict stories played out on them. So, if you picture this massive tapestry that's got this great story arc across it, and through the pictures, they change colors, and they change shapes, and they change dynamics of what's going on throughout the story, right? So I kind of picture like the fabric of this reality is all these different colored threads weaving through this cloth. And so what happens is we come to a scene, a depiction of a certain scene, and there'll be prominent colors, right? Maybe this scene's got more blue and more red, and there's this, whatever it is playing out. those colors will pop forward on the weave, right? The blue, say it's got predominantly blue, you'll see that all the blue threads, all the different colors of blue, you know, will come forward on the weave of the cloth, and they'll present themselves on the surface to depict the picture. And it's much like what our reality is. We've got all these archetypes that carry algorithms, programs, sort of behaviors, consciousness, ways in which they react and interact with other situations and things. And they have a set of behaviors. And they kind of run through, and they'll be in the background, you know, sometimes they're at the back of the cloth, and they're not predominant. But when a certain scene comes into play, all of a sudden they step forward. And so you'll see them, you'll start to spot them in your reality, these consistent themes. And you think, well, why does this keep coming up, right? And it really is because those threads, those colors of those archetypes are being woven to the forefront to present themselves as part of the depiction of the particular story at that time.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was Alan Watts that had that, you know, analogy of how things look much different on the other side as you like jump over here to do this and stuff. You know, it's like a completely different perspective when it comes to something like that. But yeah, we all have our individual threads, and it's actually so beautiful because when you notice trends because I would notice that between a few different other YouTubers, they would talk about something that had been on my mind, but maybe in a completely different way. So you can see how the energies come through, and then people sort of decode it into their own archetype, as you're talking about, or their own, you know, way
slightly
of seeing
different hues of the same color, right? That's why I was saying like blues, but you may have like turquoises, and you have like lighter blues and dark, you know, ultramarines, right? But they share a hue, and they step forward and present. They're seen more visibly, right?
Yeah.
But the fabric consists all the time of all of these different algorithms, archetypes,
soup
patterns.
Talking about, right?
Right. But that's why it's like a soup, right? It's like a soup where, you know, say you got peas and carrots, and all the peas start to float to the surface, or all the green vegetables, you know, float to the surface. It's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah.
They'll present themselves. And so that's why we see it. You'll see it micro to macro, all little ways, inside and out, in the fabric of your reality. So it's a really fun game when you start to see the hues, see the colors, right? See the themes, the archetypes. And then you're like, oh, look, there it is over there. And there it is being experienced over there. And I can see how they're expressed differently, you know, through these, just different shades, different people, different ways.
Exactly. And it is getting to a point where you're just really learning to have an appreciation.
Yeah.
And that's really what my channel was really kind of built on that, you know, rather than trying to convince anybody. Just hear other people's points of view, and it tears those walls down between you when you just consider someone else's perspective, you know? And that kind of gets back to what we were talking about being designed to do whatever it is you came to do, even if it is to be the bad guy, you know? I'm just glad I wasn't, you know, a villain this time around. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure I have been, but not this time around, you know?
Not this time. Well, you never know. Like, you could be, like, here's a great example. It's little things. Like I said, it's not necessarily like things that maybe you accidentally cut somebody off in traffic. You didn't even know you did it.
Right. I was the villain.
And they're having a bad day, and you are evil.
Right.
Like you don't care. You don't, right? They create a whole story about you, the a-hole who cut them off.
Yeah.
You didn't even know.
Right.
So don't think that you haven't played the villain, because you have. You could be the nicest guy in the world, never done anybody any harm, but I'm sure that there's somebody out there will have a story about why you're a villain,
right?
Whether you really even thought you participated in it or not. So it's just like to be okay with it, and you don't need to explain yourself away, you know, so much. If somebody's going to think something about you, you don't have to even change their mind so much anymore. It's like, it's okay. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've certainly been the villain before. I'm not saying that, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we all have.
Yeah. My whole
I'm like, you're one of the nicest guys I know. Like, really, I I can't imagine why anybody would. But
well, I wasn't always as nice. So.
Well, yeah, I definitely wasn't.
I was more angry and bitter before. So.
Yeah, I definitely.
But I was always nice, but not. I used to be more quick-tempered and stuff.
I could be a bitch of the first degree. Let me tell you, like. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's still in there. I'm not saying it's not in there.
Oh yeah.
Under some boxes in the basement and stuff.
Yeah,
the right opportunity.
That wolf still got teeth.
It will just pop out of nowhere. It's like, where did that come from? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I thought that was tucked away.
See, that's the thing too. Like, this is part of like me being okay with being everything, everyone, and no one.
Yeah.
Because what that means is I don't have to be any one thing at any one time. But if I make a decision in that what time of what I want to pull out to address that situation in that given moment. So it's not like the wolf is gone and the teeth are gone. Right?
It's just you realizing there's something to pull out and it's not you.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Just it's not there right now.
Right.
But it's still in the wardrobe. It's still there.
A hat we can put on in the closet.
Oh, it's a hat we can wear.
Right.
But I'll know why I'm wearing it.
Right.
Right.
You'll consciously put it on. Right?
I will consciously know why I'm wearing it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's.
It won't be fight or flight response. Like,
it won't be a hat just out of nowhere flies on. Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I say this and watch me go behave poorly in some way over the next 24 hours. That puts everything I said to shame.
Yeah. The universe has a way of teaching us. Like, we have to clear that up next month, I guess.
The funniest thing happened just a couple of days ago. Okay, like, I'm pretty calm. Like, I don't panic. Like, a building could blow up beside me. I'd be, I wouldn't. Don't bat an eye. Don't like snakes. I've come a long way. I can walk by a snake now, no problem. I don't freak. I used to freak, like, and I don't do any of that anymore. But I tell ya, we were in the backyard yesterday, and Mom's dog Dakota, he got hold of a snake, and he was only like 4 or 5 feet from me, right? And it wasn't that he got the snake. It wasn't that the snake was there. It's just Mom had told me this story about years ago when he got a hold of a snake and shook it so hard it like ripped in half and went flying.
Yikes.
Okay, so I'm sitting there. He grabs the snake and he starts shaking, and I get this picture in my head of like half of this snake like coming and flying and just hitting me. And it wasn't like, I'm not afraid of the snake. I wasn't afraid of being bitten by the snake or anything like that. But he started doing this, and all I could remember was, Mom, this story. And I'm like, any second, a piece of this snake is going to like launch itself and hit my face or my arm or something. Man, I freaked. I was like, Mom, I was like, get it away from me. Like, I don't panic like that, eh? But it wasn't like fear panic. It was like disgust panic, like that.
Like a snake NATO or something.
Like a snake NATO. But I'm like, I don't even panic like that. So it was just funny. It was like, I haven't panicked like that since I was like a little kid, I think, crying to my mom.
It's fun, isn't
Mom.
It? It's fun. Afterwards, it's fun.
I know.
Wow.
Just it was great fun, Shane. It was awesome.
No, but I'm saying
Loved
it. You get that moment of like, wow, that was real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was real. That panic was real. It was funny. I was like, Zao, see, it can still happen. It can still happen to you, Michelle.
It's not happening to you, Michelle. It's happening for you. Flying snakes. That's for you. That's helping you.
But it didn't even hit me. It didn't even hit me, but I tell you.
Right?
It was in there. It was real. Like, right. I swear, in that moment, I could like almost feel this half of dead snake hitting my arm. And it was just like
with its last little bit of strength of the front.
Yeah, and I just like I froze. I absolutely froze. I just panicked. I was like, get it away from me. I couldn't even do anything. It was
it
like,
could have been worse. He could have just turned and started running right at you with it, like,
yeah.
You're like, hightail it out of there.
Why did you have to make it worse?
I'm just saying, there's always, it could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been
I'm
worse.
like a half glass full kind of
But
guy.
it didn't even hit me. It wasn't worse. It like nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like, I just went in. It's just funny. Like, it can happen to the best of us. So, like I said, I don't usually panic. I'm one of those people who just stay calm. All right.
Let me ask you this though. When it happened, like after it was kind of like settling and stuff, did you feel like your higher self kind of did it to you a little bit?
Oh, my higher self does everything to me all day long, 24/7.
Right. But you had that feeling, you're like, you guys, or whatever. I do.
Don't
that
get
so
too
much.
cocky.
Right.
Yeah, you can still panic.
Right.
But I was thinking, like, as I was thinking, well, it's not quite fight. What is that? Disgust. Like, it was total. Like, because it wasn't fear of this. Like, I wasn't afraid that I was going to be injured. Right? I wasn't afraid that my life was at stake or that this was a garter snake. Like, nothing. It was like just this overwhelming disgust. It had to be like some level of I think it was the remnants of my phobia. Like, because it's pretty deep. Like, I couldn't even look at a snake, So, I mean, I've come a long way. Never mind being in the same room or like, if that had happened, 10 years ago, I could have been flying over the fence. Like, it's just a spontaneous like reaction, like you ever see those cats or whatever, where they throw a cucumber on the floor and they have like, if they think it's a snake, like, or monkeys, because they have this like ingrained reaction to snakes. So if you throw a cucumber on the floor beside a cat, it'll freak. Right? Like, there's no thought process there. There's like this animal instinct, reaction. But so I worked hard to overcome that. Yeah, definitely some lessons to learn on that one.
But you came clean, so you don't have to worry about any snakes popping up on your porch as soon as the broadcast ends from your higher self.
Yeah, I came clean. I came clean about it.
No lessons to learn.
I always got to be ready to humble myself, right?
Amen to that. Yeah.
Remove it all. Take it. Yep. Yeah. I'll give it up before you have to take it from me. I learned the hard way. Mm-hmm.
Well, dude, hearing this story, how did you overcome your fear just over time?
Dreams. A lot of work with.
You had.
It's been the process. Yeah, a lot of overcoming fear was taught to me in dreams through nightmares, right? So I don't have nightmares anymore.
She made me get rid of the snake. Yeah.
Yeah. Mom was there. She's probably laughing because she knows. I was like 5 years old again, Mom.
Right. You're like, it's your dog.
Yeah, it's your dog. Too sunny. Because it wasn't even the snake. It was like a piece of the snake.
Right, you're afraid of a piece of the snake flying.
A piece of the snake touching me. Like, yeah.
My brother did that.
Funny story.
He had one of those old pickup trucks where you had to unlatch each side of the tailgate to get it to, like an old Toyota or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had killed a snake that day, and he draped it over the back, and I thought it was a rope, So I went to like just move the rope out of the way, and I grabbed that thing. It was all cold and slimy feeling, and I like jumped, and he like started cracking up laughing. It was just so funny to him. It was dead. It had the head.
It was hilarious. Yeah.
That was my big brother. That was.
Yeah.
Kind of thing big brothers do. I was fine once I found out it wasn't alive. I'm like, oh, thank God it was alive. That would have really freaked me out if it came across and like.
Yeah. See, I just have a hard time. There's a physical like reaction. You know what? There's got to be a reason for this. I wanted to come on the show today and talk about the programs that we hold within the 3 layers of our bodies. And this is one that I hold like in a very physical element. There's a reaction to snakes that I have that's physical, and it's not mental. It's just this gut response. Instantaneous. No control. There's no logic. Yeah.
You're not harmonized with your three bodies when the snake comes around. Huh?
Yeah, no. Out the window. That's, you know what? Maybe that's where I need to pull the spiritual body out then, eh? Yeah.
The Kundalini snake, right?
Get thee behind me, Satan, the serpent. You know, maybe there's a real, like, the symbolism of the serpent, you know, like it's a real archetype for the devil, and you know, to have maybe such a ingrained physical reaction to the symbolism of Satan.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's make it something more than what it is.
Yeah, that's still deep down programming, you know, especially when you move to the point where you're like, oh, the serpent can represent knowledge and all this other stuff, and it's like, I don't know. We got a lot of programming. I know somebody just did a session where somebody was talking about Alice Cooper, speaking of snakes, and I remember hearing in Christian school about how he was horrible and he like bit the heads off of snakes and all this, and I was really like fearful of this guy, and I heard his music the other day, and I was like, wait a minute. Are they serious? Was this what I was so afraid of? Like, wow, the programming goes deep, and sometimes we don't even question it. We don't even go check it out, you know, but I went and checked it out, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea, you know, I thought it was...
I'm pretty sure he probably was worshiping the devil, but...
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, from the music I heard, I imagined it'd be much more sinister or evil. It
well, yeah,
like it was just theatrical and funny more. You know.
Well, it's the times, right? For back then when he put out, had a different, you know.
Oh, it's probably really.
You listen to, you know, heavy rock in the 70s, and like what was considered heavy rock and, you know, heavy metal, right? And you listen to it now on easy listening channels.
Exactly.
From the 70s, and that was heavy rock, right?
It was like that with the Christian rock band called Stryper. I went back and listened. I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds like praise and worship music at our church. This isn't like even heavy metal. But I remember they came out in their black and yellow striped things, and they were so evil, right, to the Christians, you know. But it was like praise and worship music, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely been an agenda through music to push a tolerance for satanic worship, we'll say, but that's not to say that they all were.
Right, that's true.
Who knows? Perception again, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows?
For some, it is like theater. That's what the Rob Zombie guy said. Oh, I dress up like this all.
It's just theater. Yeah.
But
who knows?
For some other people, it's more serious. I don't know. It depends which games you're playing, right?
Yeah. You know, it was disconcerting for a while, you know, having musicians and actors and that you liked their work or liked their music, and then, you know, now you have to like question, you know. But I think, you know, I had to get to a point too where sort of set the artist aside and appreciate the work. You know, a good example is like I'm watching House of Cards right now, and you know, I'd watched the first season before, and then all the stuff, you know, I found out all the stuff, and all the stuff came out about the actor in it, and put me off, you know, watching it for a while. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, it's a good show, and there's a lot of good stuff in it. You know, there's a lot of other people that were involved in, you know, creating this stuff, and you don't always have to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
You know, and we don't really know, you know, who is and who isn't, and I think it's just important not to, you know, give up idol worship to any of these people anymore. But that doesn't mean that we can't still appreciate, you know, the music or the work or the movie or the film or the piece of creativity that was done.
Right.
You know, be ashamed to just sort of pitch all that as well too sometimes.
It's all part of the adventure.
Yeah.
Their adventure anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just the spectators.
Yep. With a lot of opinions. A lot of backseat drivers.
Absolutely. Well, we love you guys. We'll see you next month. Lots of love, light, and
yeah.
Thanks for being on here, Michelle. It's been a blast.
Oh, it's awesome to hang out with you again, of course. Awesome. Yeah.
Bye-bye, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Peace.